while we're setting up for the next session, let me introduce our speakers and their bios. Our speakers, Sandie, leads Zendesk's go-to-market team across Asia Pacific and Japan, partnering with companies of all sizes and maturity to evolve and elevate their customer experience. As president of sales, he works with brands to help them put the customer back at the center of the business by adopting modern and open approaches that allow them to break free from legacy CRM infrastructure and traditional one-dimensional business processes. That is Sandie Overtveld. And our next speaker is Patrick de Laive. Patrick is the co-founder and CPO of The Next Web, as we've gotten to know over the past 2 days, an Amsterdam-based media technology platform in which aids people to get the most out of technology by bringing them together through extraordinary events and remarkable stories. Since he and Boris founded the company back in 2005, the company's been growing rapidly, and in fact, as we've mentioned, The Next Web is curating the speaker on the stage in collaboration with Deepa. And today they're going to talk about the future of customer experience and how to win customer in Asia. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sandie and Patrick. ขอเสียงปรบมือด้วยครับ Please.
Hello. Thank you. Sandie, I have an idea. Let's get a little bit closer to the audience.
Sure.
We put them here. I hope this is okay with the cameras and stuff.
Sawadee krap.
So, hi. My name is Patrick de Laive. I'm from Amsterdam. I'm the co-founder of The Next Web. I'm here with Sandie Overtveld. Sandie, thank you so much for being here. You are not a citizen of Thailand, but you are often here. Can you tell us give us a little bit of background, who you are, where you're from, where you live, and why you're here?
Sure. So I'm Sandie Overtveld. Strangely enough, I'm also from the Netherlands. But have been living in Asia for about 11 years now. And I came to Thailand for the first time in 1987 when my wife was at school here. And a lot has changed in the last 20 years.
So you work at Zendesk and you are Mr. Customer Experience, you could say. When you arrived here in Asia, which country was that? Singapore?
Singapore, correct.
You still live in Singapore?
I still live in Singapore.
And how often do you travel to other countries around?
Every second week I'm in a different country.
Okay, so you've been to Thailand quite often?
Many times.
So what would you say is the difference between the Thailand you first saw and now?
I remember in 1987, the only way you could get around was to flag down a tuk-tuk. You had to learn a few words of Thai, otherwise you could never negotiate with a driver to take you from one point to another. And although the tuk-tuks still exist today and you still have to negotiate in Thai, how different is it that you can now also open a Grab app, choose what quality of car you want, pre-select where you want to go, so you actually get delivered to the exact address as opposed to occasionally being dropped on the wrong corner or the wrong part of Bangkok. And so from a digitization perspective and a technology perspective, a significant amount has changed in the 20 years, but probably even more so in the past 10 years.
Yes, and would you say obviously the fact that we have mobile phones changes basically everything, but when it comes to customer experience or customer service, is the mobile phone the iconic device that has changed everything for them?
Absolutely. It's hard to think, does anybody in the audience not have a smartphone?
Okay,
Anybody?
raise your hands.
If you do not have a smartphone.
Okay, no hands.
Perfect. So the iPhone...
Okay, but hold on. Let's test if they are awake. Raise your hands if you have a smartphone.
Yeah, they're awake.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
So if you think the iPhone was only invented and released 12 years ago in 2007, and the first Samsung smartphone only in 2009, it's really only 10 years old. And 10 years ago, less than 20% of the people in Thailand had access to the internet at all. And today that figure is well over 65%. And there are 1.3 mobile phones for the entire population of Thailand. So there's a population of 70 million and there are 90 million smartphones.
So who has more than one smartphone? Okay, that's about right.
1.3,
yeah. So why would you need a second smartphone actually?
We get told it's one is for private or business, and secondly, sometimes it's one carrier has a special rate for data in a certain way, and another carrier has a special rate for something else.
Hey, and when did you start working for Zendesk?
Almost 5 years ago.
And Zendesk is obviously well known for being one of the leading companies when it comes to customer service. And can you tell us a little bit about kind of like what customer service is and where we're heading towards now?
So customer, I mean, we talk about customer experience today, but you know, customer service traditionally was a cost center for a business. In case a customer bought something and it had a defect, then they needed to be able to contact you to see how they could work on their warranty or to get a repair. And today things have changed dramatically where it's really about the customer's entire experience with you. So they want to be able to contact you before they purchase something, while they're learning about the product. They want to be able to contact you when they have the product, sometimes just to tell you how great the product is, but sometimes because they have questions about the product and perhaps there's something wrong with the product that they still need the warranty for. But the customer wants to be able to talk to the vendor from start to finish. Whereas traditionally, before everything became digital and before mobile phones and the internet was so prevalent, if you had a question, you would go to a specialty store and you would find someone in that store to tell you about the product. But today, the feedback that we get from all retail is that most consumers are so well educated because of the internet that when they walk into the store, they most of the time know more than the person in the store. And so the ability to contact the vendor on whatever platform they're on is really what we see now. So we call that omni-channel. And as much as that sounds very complicated, if you think about it on a mobile phone, you may browse the web and go to a website to buy something. But then you have a question about it, so you open the chat button and you chat with a person. You've now switched channels. Then you may have to ask a question they can't answer, and then they have to call you back. Now you're using the third channel, and then they may SMS you a confirmation of an order number. Now you've used 4 channels. And so the expectation of a customer to just be able to do that without worrying whether the technology behind it is able to support it, I think is what's really driving people to rethink what experience a customer has. And then uniquely, and not uniquely, but really broadly in Thailand, social channels like Line are incredibly important for people to communicate between each other, but more and more an expectation that businesses are also able to communicate on the same channels.
So that's interesting. So basically, when you go from customer service, right, that's basically reacting based on questions that come at you to become more proactive and try to deliver an end-to-end experience to your customers. But would you say that also requires new or a different skill in for the people that are behind the machines, basically, or behind the tools that they're using?
We always say a happy agent makes for a happy customer experience. If you think about the last time you phoned someone for a customer service query, you can hear if the person on the other side of the phone is smiling or having an absolutely miserable day when they're reading off a script. You can hear it. And so it is really important, I think, to make sure that the agents that need to engage with your customers are empowered, have the information, etc. I mean, it's, again, if I use the Grab or Uber example, I'll probably use Grab because you know them here. You know, the top three questions they get is, did the driver take the wrong route or is it longer? There's something wrong with the car or I left something in the car. And so they empower and train their agents to be able to answer those questions as easily as possible without having to go to multiple screens. And they're empowered to answer the customer immediately. And so, yes, there is probably more training and enablement required, but really it's about empowering your agents to be able to make decisions on behalf of you with the customer.
And from a business perspective, you need kind of like a one customer view, right? You need to know who that person is online, you need to know who that person is on LinkedIn, you need to know who that person is when they're on your website. Right. And is that basically, is Zendesk empowering in that all?
Correct. So we think of ourselves as the outside-in CRM. So empowered or really built for customers to easily come in and for their data to be reflected to any agent helping you and know everything about you. You know, and to answer the previous, you said the proactive piece. Yes, it's very important to understand who your customer is when you do the proactive piece. So that you understand what they require. And you know, if you take customers like Samsung, when you go to their website or to Lazada and you want to go buy a high-end product from them, they will automatically try to engage you in a chat to make sure they can answer all your questions and make it as easy for you to purchase as possible. And that now is the future customer experience. So they're not waiting for you to contact them. They're contacting you based on how you're interacting with their product pages. And then, so once you have that one customer view, so are you working with other CRM tools like, say, Salesforce, or you get your data that is used within Zendesk from other tools as well? Absolutely. I think that's the key. And so, if you have other Salesforce automation tools like Salesforce or other CRM tool sets, or you have proprietary databases that have customer data, what we do is we reflect that data inside Zendesk. So we don't import it, we reflect it inside Zendesk when an agent requires it to actually talk to your customers, or if your customer is doing self-service, that the customer is actually able to see that data centrally. So we try to take the complexity out of lots of on-premise systems, multiple systems, and actually reflect that in a central place. We're totally built on AWS, we're a total cloud vendor, and so the ability to deploy that very rapidly and to have the flexibility that you can change as your customers change is what we think is the most important. So this all sounds, great. Too good to be true? Too good to be true. And it is true, though. It is. But this also sounds like, okay, I'm going to do this once I am the size of JD or Huawei. It sounds like very complicated to do or very expensive. What if you're starting a business here in Thailand or in Singapore for that matter? At what moment do you want to implement some of that, like some of those like one customer view tooling? Actually, I think if you went to the big vendors and asked them, once you're their size, that's when it's the most difficult because you have so many systems. Our smallest customer is one person, and our largest customer probably has, I don't know, I'm going to say 30 or 40,000 agents that they deal with. But we try to cater to make it simple to deploy when you're small and to have the ability to make all the integrations when you have very large complex systems and to be able to deploy those as easily as possible.
And the business model on your end is also, so you charge the one person less than 100,000 people company.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And if you're a startup, if there's any startups in the audience, go to zendesk.com/startup. We give you the first year for free.
Oh, that's nice.
Not good, right?
To go back to the small and medium enterprises, can you give some examples where you've seen some of your customers maybe going from a more reactive model to a proactive model where that really took off and where that drove their business?
I probably can't give you the brand, but I'll talk about from an e-commerce perspective. Yes. So we've had an e-commerce customer who started fairly small and essentially just wanted to handle queries on customers that had purchased something. And if you're in the e-commerce business, you'll know that like 70% of all the queries you get are, where are my products, or how do I return something? And effectively, that was really a reactive approach, and the satisfaction levels on those are very low. And so they started with that and grew very fast, but then realized that they could actually avoid those questions in the first place if they tried to answer them before the customer asked them. So firstly, they put chat on the front end so that if you're sitting on a page, because often those queries also, well, I'm returning it because it's the wrong size, because I thought a medium was whatever. And so firstly, you want to answer those questions when people are looking at a product and can actually ask the question, is this an Asian medium or is this an American medium, and what's the sizing chart? So you do it that way. And then secondly, from a shipping perspective, just sending people updated shipping information on a continual basis, or letting people interact very easily with the third-party shipping or logistics that you might use.
So is that like, you have track and trace, but then you also send updates?
Correct. So we have a number of delivery companies that deliver for large e-commerce organizations. An example in Thailand is Kerry Logistics, where they do last-mile delivery. And so they will update you either via SMS or email on where your package is within the delivery cycle.
And would you say, like those type of things, do they add to drive sales in the long term?
Absolutely. I think from a customer loyalty perspective, if you go and have a look, people's first purchase from an e-commerce site is kind of a nerve-wracking experience, because you're making an anonymous purchase from a company whose brand you've heard of, and probably someone suggested you should do it, but the first time you don't know what you're going to get. And so when you get really high levels of service on the delivery side, it tends to drive the second interaction much easier, and so forth.
Yeah. Here in Asia, and when you compare that to, for instance, US, I think there are a lot of different channels here, like WeChat and Line, that are almost non-existing in Europe or US. Can you share a little bit about like the differences between the platforms that people are using here versus Europe and US? And can you share a little bit?
Sure. So I mean, one of the things that drives the big difference is the PC penetration versus smartphone penetration. And in Southeast Asia, it's really about mobile first. As I said, if you think 1.3 mobile devices for the entire population, it's incredible. And through that, things like social channels like Line become increasingly important. Line, very much for Thailand, is I think 33 million active daily users of Line in Thailand. It's the highest penetration in a market for Line. Whereas in Indonesia, it's WhatsApp. And in India, it's WhatsApp. So it really depends by market which social channel, but there is increasing demand from consumers to be able to engage with the businesses that they do business with, or the brands that they buy from, to interact on those channels. Now, it drives a lot of challenge because if you're a fast-moving consumer brand and let's say you make Singer beer and your consumers want to start engaging with you in the pub, you better have a way to answer a large volume of customers. And so we're doing a lot of work with companies here who are working on bots to be able to answer first-line queries of customers, but make it feel natural and easy, and then know at which point you want to hand that discussion off to a real person. But all brands, whether they sell directly to consumers or indirectly to consumers, are working really hard to find ways to interact with consumers directly because that's what consumers are demanding.
And so when you set up a company here in Thailand, for instance, what are a few things that you need to take into account when you want to grow, when you want to expand to another Asian country, for instance?
So, as we often say to our American colleagues, Asia is not a country, and every country is very different, and every country has a very different culture. There are many overlaps, but essentially every country and every culture wants to interact in the way that they are used to. And I use the simple example of if you're in Thailand, my customers expect to engage with me online. If I'm in Korea, they want to engage with me on Kakao, and when I'm in Indonesia, they want to engage on WhatsApp. And there's just an expectation that you do that. Probably the common thread across all the countries in Asia is people like to do business face to face. And although we talk about digitization and we talk about digital channels, people still want to feel that there's a form of personal engagement in every piece of business that you do.
So to recap there, you're saying basically, okay, you have a business here in Thailand, you want to go to another country, you do your research, which country fits your product, etc. And then when it comes to customer engagement and customer experience, you look into kind of like what are they using and make sure that you're on those platforms.
And I think understand the culture. So, when I'm a European in Thailand, but I have a great Thai team who's sitting in the front row here. It's very important in Thailand that Thai companies can engage with Thai people speaking Thai. And it's very important in Indonesia, although they will work with Singaporeans and Europeans and Thais, they still want a local relationship with an Indonesian who can speak Bahasa, who feels like they understand them. And so I think what for us as we grow across Asia is we focus very much on being representative as an organization of all the countries that we work in. And we try to have as many of those languages and cultures represented not only in the country, but also in our office. So that as we design go-to-market strategies, we have good representation from the region, and we make sure that we get diverse views represented within those strategies.
So you're responsible for Asian opening new offices in Asia, right?
Correct.
For Zendesk. And so you already touched upon like your go-to-market strategy, but how do you decide which country you're going to open a new office?
We look at a number of things. One is what's the opportunity in that market. So obviously that's partly based on what the GDP is doing, but we also look at GDP per capita, which is often a driver for where software purchases are. It is if you're going to open an office in a country, you also need to make sure that the first people that do that are of the right mindset and that you have high levels of trust with them. And so typically we've planned, and we have like a probably 5-year plan of which countries we expect to go into. And then we've identified people that we know in those countries or work with in those countries to actually open the offices for us. So Neng here in Thailand, I've worked with we'll make you famous, Neng. I've worked with for over 10 years, and so, if you want someone to open an office, you need to have that level of trust.
So you hire a country manager first, then you roll out or you translate your software into the local language.
So for us, one of our key probably differentiators is our founder was Danish, and so from the beginning he said language is most important, and so he created a product that is localized into 22 languages, one of which is Thai, almost from the outset. And we deliver our product in an agile way, i.e. we do stand-ups on a Monday, we deliver code on a Thursday for QA, and on Thursday it goes to the localization team, and by the following Friday we roll out all 22 languages simultaneously. So we are rolling out features on our products in 22 languages every single week. And that's really important. Like if you're going to go multiple countries, you must be able to provide the local language in the bulk of those countries.
Makes sense. And would you say if you have a company here in Thailand, say you're selling software as a SaaS business type of thing, would you say your next step when you want to grow outside of Thailand, should that be close to Thailand, Asia, or US, or China, for instance?
I think it depends very much on the products that you have and what your strategy is. So you need to look where your competitors are. Depending on what size you are compared to your competitor, and depending on what their focus areas are, that may determine which markets you go into next. So we looked at our competitors, they thought Australia and Japan were top, so we spent a lot of time focusing on Asian countries and actually building out our businesses there and building out our customer bases there.
So you chose to not go where your competitors were?
We were there, but we chose to overinvest where they were not.
Okay. That's a good strategy. And one last question, I think it's interesting about pricing. So you have a Danish founder, but Zendesk is an American company. The price you charge a company in the US, is that the same price you charge a company in Thailand?
Because we're global and we have a global website, yes it is. But I would say people in Southeast Asia are much tougher negotiators. So on average, they probably get a better price.
So that comes back to the taxi. You know, they're used to the example of the taxis. They're used to basically negotiate on everything, even a taxi. So also on software.
On everything, including software.
Including software.
Everything is peng ma.
Okay, with that, I'd like to thank you so much for being here, and kapung kap for the rest.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Kapung kap.